Let's hear the violins one first. And now let's do the same thing with the violins too. People with the very good perception of metronome and tempo and everything might have noticed, ooh, but it seems to be a bit offbeat, and yet that's right, because the BBC Symphony Orchestra has a delay of 150 milliseconds or something like that by default. But since all of them are BBC Symphony Orchestras, that's things. Although the metronome isn't fine with it, but they are delayed exactly the same way. So together, they will sound just fine. Let's hear 1 and 2 together, because those are just doubling, but you will immediately notice how both of them together can create this full, rich violin cinematic thing sound. And actually, we will come to this today, hopefully. We will even put a third doubled octave on top to make it become the really intense cinematic stuff that we all know and love. Great. So let's unsolo them and let's listen to the filler line, which was a bit complicated to actually properly listen to and get out of the mix. Of course, we cannot see the score on screen, so I had to deduce it from the actual melody, and I hope that I did it right, but it sounds kind of fine. So even if it's not correct note by note, as long as it sounds fine, we can definitely follow along with the video. So let's see what this sounds like. And then we've got the cello, which is doing the bass line. Really simple, right? Let's turn the volume down on this a bit further, actually. Let's put it down to 10 something. Let's see how this goes. And now let's listen to the more context. Yeah, that's fine. Do notice how they are greatly panned in this beautiful hall, all in the same hall, because the BBC Symphony Orchestra in London, right? So you've got the violins 1 and 2 on the left, and you've got the viola somewhere slightly to the right, and then you've got the cello, which is basically sitting at the very right. Okay, so now we're going to get step 2, which is a step that we haven't done yet. So let's see what it does.
Arthur E. Heacox emphasizes the importance of filling in your middle to give your orchestration as much resonance as possible.
Okay, makes sense.
So what he recommends we do is add a fifth voice to fill in any gaps in the middle of the
Great.
chord. Sometimes there's a space between voices, so that's where you'd put the filler. And if there is no gap, you just double one of your other voices.
Makes sense.
Here, the orange line is the filler voice. Sometimes it's between the alto and tenor, sometimes it's between the tenor and bass, and in this part, I even use it to hold the A between the alto and soprano.
Okay, we have to figure this out.
Heacox says not to worry about parallel octaves or fifths between your other lines. The point here is not to create an independent counterpoint, but to fill in and add body to the chord. So what we do is give the soprano to the first violin.
That's what we already did.
The alto and tenor to the second violins in divisi.
Okay.
The filler line to the viola, and the bass line to the cello.
Okay, let me do this for a quick second. Now let's duplicate violins 2, because these are going to go divisi. If we had a real orchestra in front of us, then we probably have to note that we want to do this divisi style, but what we're going to do this time is we're basically just doubling the track. So we have 2 violin tracks for that Violin II. And what the second Violin II is gonna do is gonna take the tenor line, right? That's what he said. So we are gonna take the viola line and copy it over to the Violin II. Let's listen to his instructions again.
Soprano to the first violin, the alto and tenor to the second violins in divisi.
Okay. The tenor was the filler line before, right? So we already had a distinct tenor line, so that's what I just duplicated.
The filler line to the viola.
Okay, so the filler and the tenor line are basically the same. At least that's what I think right now.
And the bass line to the cello. So splitting the second violins into divisi.
Which doesn't make any sense, because now we're not filling in any middle register stuff. Except if we like put the filler lines up an octave or something like that. Which you could do. Violins 1 doing this usual stuff. That's doing fine. We want the Violin 2 to do the alto line, which is working fine. We want the Violin 2 and divisi as well do the filler line, which I cannot figure out right now. But I think, if I remember right, then in something like step 5, it's better to actually deduce it from the playing piece. So what we want to do here is we want this thing to play the viola line. And it does. And we want the same thing to be done with the viola, but so that's kind of fine. And cellos are just doing what the cellos usually do. Playing basses. And this is that. Notice how the viola in the lower register starts to sing more and be louder in the mix because it's lower. This is how it usually goes, right? The lower you go, the easier it cuts to the mix. Okay, now let's introduce step 3, which is really, really easy because we're basically just doubling the cellos down below an octave in the basses, which is a thing that I usually do in step 2 already. Or usually I start with basses and then I double the basses up an octave in the cellos, but probably doesn't matter.
Next, we expand to 6 voices by doubling our bass line down an octave in the basses. This is a pretty common technique that you may already know, although that new filler line adds a bit of weight and support in the middle that keeps it from getting dragged down too much to the low end. Heacock scores this with Violin 1 on the soprano, Violin 2 divisi on the alto and filler line, Viola divisi on the alto and tenor, cellos on the bass line, and the basses on that bass line down an octave.
What? I'm confused.
To play more as we expand outwards in the next steps.
Right now we have 5 voices, right? We've got Violin 1, 2 on divisi, 2 and 3, 4 viola, 5 cello. Why does he put something on 2 divisis now?
Pulling our bass line down an octave in the basses.
Okay, let's do this first. Let's introduce basses because I don't have any basses loaded yet. Let's do this. Let's do No Spitfire, BBC Symphony Orchestra, strings, bass. Let's load it up. Here we go. Let's take the cellos down here and let's drag them down an octave. We basically got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We get 6 voices now. But the Violin 2 is doing crazy stuff now. Anyway.
This is a pretty common technique that you may already know, although that new filler line adds a bit of weight and support in the middle that keeps it from getting dragged down too much to the...
Okay, we basically now have soprano line in the Violins 1. We have alto line, Violin II, tenor line in Violin II, filler line in the violas, and cellos and basses and bass lines.
The low end. Peacock scores this with Violin I on the soprano,
Yeah.
Violin II divisi on the alto and filler line.
Okay, so he's basically doing the alto and filler line now, instead of alto and tenor. So this is something that I need to fix. It's expression. Doubler does expression. Can I somehow force ACC value to be can I filter? Can I filter? I probably can filter, right? I want to filter expression. Let's double the violas. And take the alto line down to the viola. Okay, let's listen to this. Let's see if that's what they want. I don't
Cellos
think
on the
that
bass line,
he wants
the
to
basses
go
on that bass
so
line
low,
down an octave.
so high. It's actually
Worth mentioning that every step of this process is
no. I definitely need to take the violas down. Nope, not you. You are the problem. Cannot hear the difference, right? I can't either.
Now for 7 voices, we do the opposite of the last step and expand upwards. We split the first violins into divisi and give them the soprano line plus the soprano line up an octave. Now we're really starting to get that cinematic sound. By the way, if you found any of this useful...
Okay, that's whatever. That's not a problem. We can definitely do that. Let's take this, double it.
or interesting so far, please give the video a thumbs up. It really does help support the channel. We split the first violins into divisi and give them the soprano line plus the soprano line up an octave. Now we're really starting to get that cinematic sound. By the way, if you found any of this useful or interesting so far, please give the video a thumbs up.
So if I can count correctly, then I've got a Violin 1, double divisi, Violin 2 divisi, which just makes 4 voices, a Viola 2 divisi, which is 6 voices, a cello and a basses, which makes 8, but he's talking about 7. Probably because we're not talking about different voices here, so 2 of them are actually identical but played on several separate instruments, right? So,
to expand into 8 voices, we do something similar to the last step, but instead of just doubling the soprano up an octave, we're going to double the top 3 voices of the chord up an octave, so the alto and tenor are coming up with us. Keep both of your soprano lines in the first violins,
okay,
so that the whole section is consistently playing the melody. Then give your alto and tenor up an octave to your Violin II in divisi.
Okay, alto and tenor going up. Okay, let me just duplicate this as usual. Okay, alto and tenor up an octave. Let's say, let's call this alto plus 1, and let's put this up an octave. We don't want filler this time, we want tenor. There. Let's call this tenor plus 1 and put this up an octave. Okay. Now
your alto and tenor at their regular pitch to the violas in divisi.
Alto and tenor. There we go. We already have tenor. We also have alto. This is fine.
Cello and bass still take the bass line in octaves.
Okay. Let's see. I must admit I don't see any huge difference here. Let's solo this. That's probably a bit... Let's go back to 16. Okay, so I don't hear a huge difference here, but... Probably because we're just, you know, tenor and filler are not the same. It's not getting fuller because we're basically just doing the same over and over again. We are definitely missing the auto line here.
We're near the home stretch. For 9 voices, there are 2 options.
Yeah, okay. Let me just copy this over.
The first is to take that 8 voice version and add back in our filler line to beef up the middle. Here, we break the cellos into divisi, splitting the sections into the tenor and bass lines.
Okay. We double the cello. And gonna remove all of those. And this is gonna be the tenor line. Give me that. Put it here. Let's solo this.
Then we give the alto and filler to our viola. Everything else stays
Alto and filler to violas.
stays the same as before.
There you go. This is the filler line, right? The filler or the tenor. I think this is the tenor, and I messed up the tenor, and I put the filler line instead of the tenor. Doom, doom, doom. Let's see. So let's record this with a viola. And this is now our main piece from the very beginning. That's actually kind of neat.
Everything else stays the same as before. Second option, and the one that Hecox calls the fullest and most effective of our entire series, is to give the soprano line down an octave to the first half of the cello. So now we have our melody line in 3 different octaves, which gives it a really powerful sound. The lower melody takes over for our filler, and you might wonder why we didn't just use that as our filler in the first place. I think the reason, and you'll hear it when you listen to it, is that it really stands out, and in all of the previous version, the point of that filler was support in the harmony. If it was just the melody down an octave, we would hear it as the melody. So here is our final scoring in all its cinematic glory.
Okay, let's do this. Let's copy this over. I'm not entirely sure what he means with this. And now what the cello does, it's playing basses and not tenor, but the soprano line, but down to the cellos. I think that's what it's supposed to be, right? Probably down an octave. Probably down 2 octaves. Probably with the expression up. That's awesome. That's awesome. I like it. That was an interesting experiment. Let's go through everything together once again. Let's start with step 1. Continue to step number 2. Step number 3, where the basses come in. Step number 4, where we finally expand up. Step number 5, where everything else is moving up as well. And step number 6, with the filler line in between. And step number 7 or 6, variation 2, with the cello and the melody. Which was absolutely inaudible thanks to doubler. Let's try this again. Now you've got an idea of how it works.